Oh, what's going on, Kanata? How you doing? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. All right, let's see here. Get everything set up, man. We'll be going through our last chapter in Black Fortunes, and then we're going to be moving. Oh, got a couple updates for you guys, so we'll get that to you in just a second. Just want to finish setting everything up. We'll get this party started. I do it. What? Okay, I can do that. Good morning, man. Thanks so much for joining us here today in the New Black Wall Street Book Club, where Black folk do read. Getting this thing started in just a second. Just setting up my watch party here so I can get this thing going. Yeah, and we can do that. All right, there we go. Good morning, man. Hey, New Black Wall Street Book Club, man. Today we'll be finishing up Black Fortunes, which is our book that we have been going through. So today will be the last chapter. So we'll finally complete this book, and then we'll move into we're going to be going through the Black Billionaires Club starting on Thursday. On Wednesdays, we're going to do our 52-week savings challenge. So every Wednesday, we will put some more money into our pot. And for that, I figured we will go through the book called Richest Man in Babylon. So on Wednesdays, we'll be picking up Richest Man in Babylon. It has a lot of financial principles that we can take from it in order to continue to, save money and have something to save for an opportunity. And then on Thursday, we'll pick up our new book. There's a book actually that I wrote, which is the Black Billionaires Club. So we'll be going through this book starting Thursday, and should take us about 2 weeks maybe to go through this book. So we will do that starting on Thursday with the Black Billionaires Club. So this is the New Black Wall Street Book Club, where Black folk do read. Y'all know what time it is. Time to get the show on the road. Mr. DJ, hit the music.
New Black Wall Street Book Club. Evan Jefferson, brother, much love. Educating, elevating, because in knowledge is the power and we'll never get it up. Literature's for the masses. Where to put your money down, now how to watch your assets. Yeah, uplifting others is a passion. My brother Evan, he will turn it into action. New Black Wall Street Book Club. You should come read with us. Yeah, we comprehend and discuss. We all just come together. There's no limit for us. Here comes your host, New Black Wall Street. Evan, take it away. New Black Wall Street Book Club.
Hey, grand rising to you, billionaires. Thanks so much for joining us here today on the New Black Wall Street Book Club, where Black folk do read. If you put in a book, we absolutely will find it. I'm your host, ERGJ, your certified financial educator, CEO of ERGJ Enterprises, ERGJ Black Bazaar, and international best-selling author of the book, The Black Billionaires Club. That book there is a study of Black wealth. That book is a study of the 12 richest Black people in the world today and how they built their wealth. And I just truly believe that if you want to be wealthy, that's a big if, by the way, but if you do, I recommend that you study wealthy people. Well, you can pick up your copy by simply going to the website, theblackbillionairesclub.com. That's right, theblackbillionairesclub.com. It's available in soft copy, also in ebook, and you can also get it in French in audiobook and also ebook as well. So pick up your copy today to begin your study of wealthy people so that you can be wealthy too. I think we've done a good job studying broke folk. Now it's time for us to study wealthy people. So pick up some of their habits so we can have wealth in our life as well. Today's sponsor is going to be brought to you by ERGJ Black Bazaar, the Afrocentric marketplace, specializing in Afrocentric home decor, personal care products, and also Black art-inspired gifts. Check out the website at www.ergjblackbazaar.com. That's right, www.ergjblackbazaar.com. Once you shop Black, beautiful people, you never go back. That's right. Once you shop black, you never go back. You find that website again at www.ergjblackbazaar.com, www.ergjblackbazaar.com. Also, Big Sis Media Group, which is what powers ERGJ and what we do here. Big Sis Media Group is a full-service creative design agency with tools to help you with your with your visual and digital media. They're there to watch over your most critical creative needs, like a Big Sis would. If you need help with websites, digital flyers, anything like that, man, check out bigsismediagroup.com. That's right, www.bigsismediagroup.com. Hit the like button, the share button if you care, man. The like button, the share button if you care, guys. Go and listen to also where you're connected from this morning, what city, what state, what country, quite possibly. You're connected from this morning. Love to know just how far our reach is this morning. We're broadcasting here on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, right here from ERGJ Studios in Decatur, Georgia. That's right, Decatur, where it's greater. Let us know where you're connected from this morning as well. Also, like for you guys to help us out. We're still on a mission. Still got an announcement, still got a mission, and that goal that we have is for 1,000 YouTube subscribers. So if you have not followed us on YouTube, feel free, please do that. Go to YouTube at ERGJ Enterprises, hit the subscribe button. Help us get to 1,000 subscribers so we can begin to monetize our videos there, and we can get YouTube to pay us so that you don't have to. And so this is where we do stuff for free for our fellow brethren and stuff like that. So whenever you get an opportunity to like something that's bringing content that you like, or follow something or subscribe to something, make sure you do that because that actually helps out those channels and helps them to reach their goals, helps them to be able to monetize their content, and we can get other people to pay us so that you don't have to. So go ahead and do that. Go to ERGJ Enterprise on YouTube, hit the follow button or subscribe button. Help our brother out. I say ask and you shall receive. So I'm asking this morning, so I'm expecting to receive as well. Good morning to you, man. Erica Padmore, thanks so much for joining us over at Facebook. How are you today? Who else is here with us, man? The queen of the digital wallet at Instagram. Thanks so much for being with us here today on the New Black Wall Street Book Club. Thanks so much for joining us here today. Now, we're going to get started this morning, guys, with our daily motivation for African American success. This comes from the book written by Mr. Dennis P. Kimbro, Daily Motivation for African American Success. And today we're going to be talking about hope. With hope, I win. With hope, I win. Everybody put in comments below, hashtag hope. With hope, I win. And today's title is featuring Rosa Parks, and it says this: baby, my feet are killing me. Baby, my feet are killing me. And our quote of the day comes from Miss Rosa Parks, the mother of the civil rights movement. She says this, and I quote, "I'm no martyr. I just had a hard day at work. My feet were hurting, and I was too tired to give up my seat." Said, "I'm no martyr. I had a hard day at work. My feet were hurting, and I was too tired to give up my seat." Miss Rosa Parks. And here's our motivation from Mr. Dennis P. Kimbro. Let's read. It is often within oppressive circumstances that one gathers hope. Hope is the father of achievement. It reinforces ability, redoubles energy, fortifies existing talent, and increases faith. Armed with the powers of hope, Rosa Parks sat down so that an entire race could stand up. Hope places everything within perspective. It was hope that rescued the spirits of W.B. Du Bois, and as he overcame racism and abuse at Harvard University, became the school's first African-American Phi Beta Kappa. It was hope that propelled Naylor Fitzhugh through Harvard's radically charged atmosphere nearly 40 years later, when he became the first African-American to earn a master's degree in business administration. And it was hope that enabled a shy farm girl named Anna Mae Bullock to endure hardship, an abusive marriage, and a roller coaster ride in the music industry. Today, Tina Turner fills concert halls as millions jam to watch her strut her stuff. As our ancestors toiled within the cotton fields of the South, hope was born. As they worked, they composed songs, sorrow songs, out of their environment. With eyes of faith, they could look beyond their immediate enslavement and translate hope out of their existing circumstances. Remember, life may not always run smoothly. Life sometimes travels in a downward spiral. Sometimes on the road to success, we get weary. Our feet hurt. It is during these trying moments that we must fill our hearts with hope. It's during these trying moments that we must fill our hearts with hope. And here's our affirmation of the day that we will repeat over and over again today as we get a little bit of this in our spirit. And it goes like this. Repeat after me. I read the last chapter. I read the last page. I know with hope I win. I know with hope I win. Well, brothers and sisters, I guess the great question is, do you have hope today? We are beginning a new year. We're in the 7th day of that new year, that new decade. Do you have hope for the future? Our affirmation of the day, repeat after me. Again, I've read the last chapter. I've read the last page. I know with hope I win. How many guys have found that to be true in your life? That with hope you win. Have a brighter outlook, optimistic for your future, knowing that you're heading in the direction that you want to go, knowing that all things work together for your good. I know with hope I win. That's Daily Motivations for African American Success by Mr. Dennis P. Kimbro. Daily Motivations for African American Success by Mr. Dennis P. Kimbro. Hey, my beautiful people, here on New Black Wall Street Book Club. That was our affirmation appetizer. And we're going to get right to the meat of what we have been going through, and we're now finishing today. It's really a great moment when you actually finish what you start, and that's a great thing. I know we're a little bit lengthy in completing this, but the point is that we went right along through it, and we'll be finishing up today as we're going through the book, Black Fortunes. The story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires. Black Fortunes. The story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires. And we're into chapter number 20, which is titled Paris by Way of Harlem. Paris by Way of Harlem. And this will conclude our journey in this book here today. So chapter 20, Paris by Way of Harlem, part 1. What's going on? Let's get it. In July of 1906, after the trial of Hannah Elias, 2 apartment buildings on West 135th Street in Harlem were purchased by an anonymous buyer through the Afro-American Realty Company for $400,000 or $2.7 million in today's term. A few days later, notes were slipped under the doors of the white families in the buildings. The notes told them to vacate their homes within 24 hours and that in the future, the dwellings would only be rented to respectable colored families. After the tenants got their eviction notices, the papers howled, "White tenants evicted by Hannah Elias." An article published in the New York Evening World read, "Hannah Elias, the negress that got $685,000 from John R. Platt, has jarred a goodly part of Harlem by ordering all the white tenants out of 2 big flat buildings." The article concluded that her move was part of a larger plot. This indicates that the wealthy colored woman will make a colored settlement out of one of the choicest neighborhoods above 125th Street. Elias denied having any part in the building purchases or the evictions, but she had indeed begun investing in Harlem with a handful of other powerful African Americans. The Upper Manhattan neighborhood was nearly all white, but changes were afoot. It stretched from the top of Central Park at 110th Street, 50 blocks north to 160th Street, backing up the deep woods that surrounded Fort Washington. The area was dotted with farms, Victorian mansions, wood frame homes with lawns, new brownstones, and empty lots on a grid of tree-lined streets. Andrew Green, the New York City planner whose murder Elias was indirectly been involved in, had facilitated development of 2 elevated trains that connected Harlem to Lower Manhattan. When the commuter rails had opened at the turn of the century, they had set off waves of migration to Harlem. The first migrants were white Manhattanites, Eastern European and Italian immigrants. They were followed a few years later by middle-class African Americans. Blacks began moving to Harlem with the help of an African American real estate developer named Philip A. Payton Jr. and his company. the Afro-American Realty Company. The first African-American migrants to Harlem came from Greenwich Village in Manhattan and Brooklyn and met resistance from whites as soon as they arrived. Their presence is undesirable among us in Harlem. An entry in the New York Indicator Manhattan Real Estate Journal stated, adding that blacks should be segregated with some colony in the outskirts of the city, where their transportation and other problems will not inflict injustice and disgust on other worthy citizens. As the Afro-American Realty Company helped blacks move into Lower Harlem, neighborhoods white citizens organized to prevent blacks from moving deeper in. Led by John G. Tyler, a white separatist Harlemite and real estate developer, a slew of anti-black, anti-integration proponents quickly began to organize. The Save Harlem Committee, Anglo-Saxon Realty, and the Harlem Property Owners Association. After blacks rapidly moved into Lower Harlem after the opening of the train station at 125th Street in 1905, whites focused their efforts on preventing blacks from encroaching higher, drawing a line at 130th Street, which served as the broader border between integrated and non-integrated Harlem. In 1909, white Harlemites successfully lobbied the New York Public Library on 135th Street to ban blacks from using the facilities. In 1912, a group of wealthy white industrialists, including the department store magnate Endurin van der Koch, forced the eviction of black tenants on 131st and 132nd Streets and blocked a black movie theater from opening on Lenox Avenue near 130th Street. Although some elite African Americans, such as Elias, had luck early on buying property in white Harlem above 130th Street, as the white residents organized, others found it impossible to penetrate the upper portions of the neighborhood, which had wider streets and larger homes. In 1911, John Nail, one of the top agents of the Afro-American Realty Company, left to form his own real estate business. In his new endeavor, he had one very wealthy client of note, Hannah Elias. Nail was a handsome man with brown skin, a round face, and curly brown hair who wore bespoke suits and highly polished shoes. He came from a prestigious family and was the brother-in-law of the NAACP's James Weldon Johnson. He and Elias became friends after her trial. With his smarts and clients like Elias, Nail had a plan to begin to bypass the color line at 130th Street and become the biggest real estate agent in Harlem. Nail had a secret weapon, his pastor, Reverend Hutchins C. Bishop. Bishop presided over St. Philip's Episcopal Church, of which Nail and Elias were both members. With his olive-colored skin, blue eyes, straight nose, square jaw, and straight brown hair, which he slicked tightly back, Bishop could pass for a white man. He was descended from freed blacks in Baltimore and considered his church a high church, recruiting upper-class African-Americans such as Elias and Nail to flock to his flock. St. Philip's Episcopal Church became famous among African-Americans during the Civil War draft riots in 1863. More than 100 black New Yorkers were killed by mobs, and the property of famous African-Americans such as Jeremiah Hamilton and James McClune Smith was attacked. During the riots, thousands of blacks sheltered in St. Philip's, which had stone walls and thick wooden doors. In 1906, as his flock swelled to more than 1,000 souls, Bishop decided to move to a larger church in Harlem. In 1906, Nail and Bishop sold his church building in Hell's Kitchen for $600,000 or $16.2 million in today's terms, and purchased a new church on 135th Street in White Harlem. Bishop went by himself to purchase the church and put the building into his own name. Looking into the Reverend's sparkling blue eyes, the sellers never imagined they were selling to a black man, let alone a large black church congregation. After purchasing the church, Bishop and Nail bought 6 more apartments in White Harlem, using the same scheme. After Nail established his own company with Elias's financial backing, he deployed Bishop as a straw buyer, gobbling up dozens of properties. Once they acquired the properties, Nail began renting and selling them to African Americans. His first customers were upper-class African Americans from the neighborhoods of Williamsburg and downtown Brooklyn, where he had grown up. Nail sold them lots for $1,000 or $3,000 to build homes on. After the draft riots, affluent African Americans, many of whose family and businesses had been attacked by mobs, had fled Manhattan to Brooklyn. Nails successfully recruited dozens of affluent black families to back to Manhattan, promising them that Harlem would be a haven for blacks on the island. Later, he bought and built apartment buildings and rented apartments to working-class African Americans who were turned away by white landlords in other areas of New York. Between 1911 and 1914, he bought up more than $1.1 million or $27.6 million worth of property in Harlem. With help of Elias and Bishop, he helped break the color line at 130th Street and turn Harlem into a bustling black enclave. So here, brothers and sisters, we have, I guess, the rise of Harlem, and we probably got some brothers and sisters who are living in that area. What's going on, man? Mr. The Cool People's Network. Good day, all. It's first week in New York. Fantastic. We have the rise of Harlem, and so this is after, I guess, obviously after Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the debacle that took place there, or in the midst of that time frame. But you still had Hannah Elias, who was a big part of what was going on in New York, and you had an African American real estate company who basically went and bought up the property using a straw man. A straw man is just basically someone you go through who can be accepted by your buyers or by your sellers. And in this particular case, it was a black man who looked like a white man, and they used that bishop to be able to buy up property and then sell those lots off to African American people, who then began to flood this new city, which we know as Harlem, which is different than the Harlem we know today. But at that time, one of the biggest bustling black enclaves at the turn of the century, and that was actually Paris by way of Harlem, Part 1, as we continue to go through the book Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires. So let's move on into part number 2 as we continue along learning more about in our last chapter of Black Fortunes, as we're talking about Harlem. Let's get it. After their affair and resulting scandal, Elias's ex-lover John Platt stayed in New York City and moved to Upper Manhattan, living with one of his daughters. "I've got to stay and face the music," he told his friends and family members. He appealed the decision to dismiss his blackmail charge against Elias in court, but lost. He remained estranged from her after taking her to court, but kept tabs of her activities in the papers. He ran stories about her whenever they were published. In 1908, he died of a heart attack at the age of 89. He left nothing to Elias in his will. She knew better than to attend his funeral. Platt's estate was worth $10,000 or $270,000 at the time of his death. It seemed that the former millionaire had transferred the majority of his wealth to Elias during their affair. In 1910, Elias left her mansion at Central Park West and moved to this penthouse of an apartment building she owned on 113th and Broadway with her butler, Cato. In Harlem, she did not have to shutter her windows or hide her face behind a veil. For a time, she felt free. After a few years, the knocks on the door began. As the best-known wealthy black woman in New York, she was constantly hassled by people looking for charity and sheriff's deputies serving her with lawsuits. She was sued by her lawyers and contractors who said she owed them money for work they did for her. She bought a parakeet that she kept in a golden cage, which she screamed at when she was upset, and spent hours at a time beating and taking out her frustrations on Cato. In time, she began to seclude herself in her penthouse the same way she had in her mansion. So Hannah Elias, if you guys remember, got a lot of her wealth through John Platt, who she had an affair with, who was a wealthy black man. And she got to the point where she had lived amongst whites and never felt comfortable living amongst them because she was the only black in town. So she tried to change the way that she looked. She tried to fit in. She tried to be white. She never really loved herself. And for a time in Harlem, she felt like, okay, this is what's up. I can be free amongst my own people. But she soon found out that even though she was amongst her own people, still being very wealthy brought more problems. It brought problems of people asking for money, begging, and it brought the other problems of people suing her for money which she found out through her time here in Harlem. So Hannah Lyons, man, I'm gonna be going back through talking more about Hannah Lyons. Her story is just phenomenal. She just never really got to a place of being truly, truly free. But that was part 2. That was part 2 of chapter 20, Paris by way of Harlem. Now let's go into part 3. Let's read. In 1914, at the beginning of World War I, Nell entered the U.S. military as part of a cohort of African-American men who hoped that blacks' participation in the armed services would help the cause of racial equality by demonstrating that blacks were patriots. Nell was part of a group of African-American soldiers deployed to France during the war. When he returned to Harlem at the end of the war in 1918, his company continued to sell houses to African-Americans and build apartments. Nell, like many other African-American soldiers, was disappointed as he read about continued lynchings and voter suppression in black newspapers as the syndicated columns of Ida B. Wells, In 1921, as he was returning hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions today to Hannah Lyons in profits, the race riots in Greenwood hit the papers. On June 10th, the New York Age, Harlem's paper of record, carried the headline on its front page: Oklahoma whites attempt to destroy entire Negro section, extra 75 dead. Both races, many wounded. In the months after the riots, a handful of African-American survivors from Tulsa showed up in Harlem. Nell helped them get settled and found them apartments. Harlem became a destination for the black elite, with Madam C.J. Walker's family moving to the neighborhood in 1910, and Robert Reed Church's son, Thomas Church, moving there in 1919. So Harlem became the place in early 1900s, around 1919, 1920, where all the black people wanted to go live. So we basically kind of migrated. We went from south to the west to Tulsa, and all that stuff went down in Tulsa with Black Wall Street. Then we migrated, I guess that would be northeast to New York and Harlem, and that was the rise of the Harlem. I guess you could say probably the Harlem Renaissance. I guess is where we're going here. That's where we move into that age of that time. So that was Paris by way of Harlem Part 3. Now let's get into Paris by way of Harlem Part 4, and then we'll do do the epilogue as well, and then we'll finish out this book. So the Paris by way of Harlem Part 4. Let's read. In 1923, Elias decided to leave the United States. She took a car to New York Pier and waited for a cruise liner that would carry her to Europe. She was accompanied by Cato, her butler and loyal companion. Elias planned to travel to France, where Nell had friends from World War I who had stayed in Europe after the war deployment. The black ex-soldiers stayed in Montmartre, a bohemia on a hilltop overlooking Paris, where people from various backgrounds lived together. When the ship arrived in New York Harbor, Elias and Cato boarded and sailed off across the Atlantic. Some people who knew her said she lived to old age in the south of France. Others said she died in Paris a few years after arriving. One rumor said she had taken $1 million with her. Others cited the numerous lawsuits against her, insisting that she would have been down to her last penny by the time she left. The one thing no one can disagree on is that she disappeared. When the newspapers learned of her departure, they went to John Nell's office and inquired about his business associates' whereabouts. Nell told them nothing other than Hannah Elias had left. Elias had finally gotten what she wanted. No one could bother her wherever she was. No one could bother her wherever she was. So Hannah Elias, that was the last, I guess, known whereabouts of Hannah Elias and her interesting story, as she hopped on a boat, maybe went to Paris, maybe didn't, maybe was still rich, maybe wasn't, but she disappeared. And she finally got what she wanted, and no one could bother her anymore. So that was actually chapter 20, guys, of Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery. As we wrap up this book, we're going to read the epilogue, and then we'll be done. We're going to move into the Black Billionaires Club. I figured that'll be a great book for us to read at the top of the year. So we'll be starting that on Thursday. Today is Tuesday. We're recording this. And tomorrow, which is Wednesday, we're going to be continuing on with our savings challenge. So for that book, we're going to be reading The Richest Man in Babylon, which has a lot of financial principles. And I believe one of the best financial books ever written for those who actually want to fix their finances this year. So let's get into the epilogue of Black Fortunes. Again, the story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires by Mr. Shomari Wills. Our epilogue, let's read. As fate would have it, the nominal wealth of most of the individuals profiled in this book faded after their deaths, yet their legacies endured. Mary Ellen Pleasant left a large estate worth nearly $300,000 or $8.4 million when she died, but she had no heirs to bequeath her fortune to. Her only daughter, Lizzie J. Smith, died when she was a young woman in San Francisco years before her mother. Pleasant's estate was consumed by her numerous creditors and complainants after she died in 1904. Robert Reed Church left hundreds of his residential properties in the Bill District of Memphis to the children of his first family, Mary Church Terrell and Thomas Ayers Church. At the time of their inheritance, the values of the properties were declining, due in part to Bill Street itself, which was once again being maligned as a black slum and vice district. Mary and Thomas thrived despite their diminished inheritance. Mary became a teacher and a prominent suffragette and civil rights activist. Thomas became a lawyer and publisher. Robert Reed Church left the bulk of his liquid assets to his second wife, Anna Church, and their children. Annette Church and Robert Reed Church Jr., who used their father's bequest to maintain the family's commercial property business on Bill Street. Church Jr. leased property to clubs and concert halls as Bill Street became the mecca of blues music, eventually serving as a launching pad for W.C. Handy and B.B. King. In doing so, he was part of establishing the black entertainment industry, which today is responsible for the majority of Black America's very richest entrepreneurs, including Oprah Winfrey, Bob Johnson, Sean Combs, Tyler Perry, and Kathy Hughes. Church died in 1952, leaving one daughter, Sarah Roberta Church. When she died in 1995, after a career working as an administrator for the federal government, she was the last known surviving direct descendant of Robert Reed Church Sr. O.W. Gurley had most of his wealth destroyed in the fires and violence of the Tulsa race riots in 1921. Afterward, he moved to a 4-bedroom house in South Los Angeles and opened a small hotel that he operated with his wife, Emma. Gurley was never able to rebuild his wealth to the level it had reached in Tulsa. The couple had no children, left a modest estate to their extended family members. Hannah Elias disappeared from public life after she moved to Europe. What she did after she expatriated is still a mystery. Nonetheless, her most notable achievement was helping convert Harlem into a black Mecca. Today, Harlem remains one of America's most prominent black neighborhoods. When Anna Malone died of a stroke in 1954, she left behind a diminished estate worth approximately $100,000, about $900,000 in today's terms, coming after years of expenses from the management fees of her company and the expensive divorce from Aaron Malone. As she had no children, her estate was split between her nieces and nephews. Many of the industries these men and women pioneered are still relevant today. Real estate, which played a role in the development of the fortunes of almost all the dynamic personalities in this book, is still an outsized component of African-American wealth. Since Reconstruction, Black people have, on average as a group, invested a larger percentage of their net worth in real estate than any other group. There may be many economic or social reasons for this, but perhaps one in particular is that for African Americans, owning one's land after toiling tirelessly over it as enslaved farmers and then sharecroppers is an affirmation of liberation. That being said, the 2008 financial crisis dealt a blow to this economic tradition as African Americans were disproportionately affected by both the fraudulent lending practices that helped create the crisis and the foreclosures that resulted. Today, the Black home ownership rate is around 43%, nearly the lowest for African Americans in modern history. Madam C.J. Walker's and Annie Malone's businesses created the Black hair and beauty industry, which today is worth nearly $700 million. Surprisingly, the Black hair industry today is not dominated by African American companies or even any American companies, but rather by foreign firms. South Korean and Chinese companies that manufacture products like wigs, hair extensions, and chemical straighteners dominate the black hair sector. The trend, however, may be reversing as more black women are choosing to wear their hair natural, just as Annie Malone advocated more than 130 years ago. Mary Ellen Pleasant and Jeremiah Hamilton were pioneers of black stock and commodity traders. They paved the way for investors like Robert F. Smith, who today is one of America's most successful investors and is worth nearly $3 billion. African Americans have historically underinvested in the markets, due in no small part to the legacy of Jim Crow era black bans on Wall Street, which early black investors like Jeremiah Hamilton, Mary Ellen Pleasant, and my great-great-uncle John Mott Drew had to circumvent just to get in the game. In recent years, the racial investment gap has been closing. Despite this progress, black investment managers are still underrepresented, with only a little over 1% of all assets in the United States being managed by black brokers and firms. During their lives, Mary Ellen Pleasant, Robert Reed Church, Ottawa W. Gurley, Annie Malone, Hannah Elias, and Madam C.J. Walker were pioneers and inspirations to other African Americans and their allies, while to others they were upenders of a racial social order. Slavery and Jim Crow were not just social atrocities, but also economic institutions meant to create a marginally compensated black labor class. As enslaved African Americans became paid tenant farmers after emancipation, their wages were garnished by plantation owners. Blacks who managed to own their farms faced constant racial harassment and threats from white supremacist groups. African American inventors were often denied patents or had their intellectual property stolen. The black wealthy class perhaps represented the greatest affront to the racist economic systems of the slave and Jim Crow eras. It is perhaps for this reason that the 6 individuals in this book face assassination attempts, mob violence, threats, libel, and slander. Yet they preserve to contribute to their communities and bring about some of America's proudest moments, such as the abolition of slavery, the suffrage of women, and the establishment of some of the country's most important cities and industries. These individuals' lives demonstrate that wealth can be used as a powerful resource for change in the right hands, if people are willing. The stories of the first black millionaires in America are the beginning of an epic that is still unfolding. The journey from enslavement to economic and social equality. Their unlikely lives provided a spark for people just beginning to lift themselves out of bondage and still serve as inspiration for minorities and women as they strive for greater financial empowerment today. Black Fortunes. The story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires. Man, I don't know how many guys were with us through this whole time, but for those that have been with us, what are your thoughts on this book? Do you enjoy it? Was this a great selection for our book club? I just had a good time just reading through it. Hopefully you guys picked it up. Hopefully guys, you supported a black author. Hopefully you'll get it and read it to your kids. A lot of history in this book as it relates to black power. That's right, black economic power. The story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires. This is the New Black Wall Street Book Club, where black folk do read. You put in a book like Daily Motivations for African American Success by Mr. Dennis P. Kimbro. You put in a book like Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans to escape slavery and become millionaires, and we absolutely will find it. As I said to you guys, tomorrow we'll be continuing along our journey into the our savings challenge this year. So it's a 52-week savings challenge. So hopefully you guys will continue along with us. We'll be going through every Wednesday. We'll be going through The Richest Man in Babylon. That's not a black author book, but I think it's one of the best financial books ever written. So we'll do that. And then we'll pick up our next book for the book club will be the Black Billionaires Club, which is the book that I wrote, the one that you see right back there. We'll pick that up on Thursday. So hopefully you guys are ready to rock and roll. You got your copy. If you haven't, make sure you go to the website, get your order today so you can have it by Thursday or Friday if you haven't already got your copy of the Black Billionaires Club. and how they built their wealth, is the story of the 12 richest African black folk in the world today. The story of the 12 richest black people in the world today. Hey guys, I want to say thanks so much for tuning in today to the New Black Wall Street Book Club. And I want you guys to remember this, that it takes a village. It starts with us. Let's build as we climb together. We all we got, beautiful people. Matter of fact, we all we need. And thank God that's more than enough. Until next episode, you know what time it is. Mr. DJ, hit the music.
New. It's the New Black Wall Street Book Club. With your host, Evan Jefferson. It's time for us to go. Yeah. Now, you ain't got a little computer, but we encourage you to get out there and learn and apply all the things you learn at the New Black Wall Street Book Club. Yeah. The New Black Wall Street. The New Black Wall Street Book Club.